Okay, well, hello and welcome to today's episode of the Power of Your Mind podcast. You are listening to episode number 285. I'm Victoria Gallagher, was my last name, the Law of Attraction hypnotist, number one bestselling author of Practical Law of Attraction. Align yourself with the manifesting conditions and successfully attract your desires. I'm also the founder of HipTalk.com, HypnoCloud apps, and the soon to be Believe app, which is coming soon. It'll give you access to about 1,000 hypnosis recordings right in the palm of your hand. So be sure to watch for the new app coming soon from the App Store. And so today I have a very special guest with me, Vincent Genna. Vincent is known as a tell it like it is, truly authentic psychic therapist. He is a spiritual teacher and an author who uses his extraordinary psychic abilities to communicate with the Intergalactic Council of Extraterrestrials. I am just so excited to dive into this. And he can be found on the website. Vincent Genna I was just studying all about. He also hosts his own podcast, weekly podcast called The Genna Effect, which is available to be found on mindbodyspirit.fm, and that's available on all platforms. He also has a book that was released back in June of 2022 called The Secret That's Holding You Back. And this was released on Amazon and all the stores. I was just before we, dived into our conversation today, just reading some of the reviews that this book has had just on Amazon. And you've received some amazing 5-star reviews on this. And so I'm even more excited to talk to you because of some of the topics of these reviews were that stood out to me, particularly because I'm all about believe. And most of these reviews talk about that. One in particular says, you don't believe what you think you believe. And another one talked about how it gives you a lot of guidance on helping people to overcome the past beliefs that are, keeping us from attaining our very best life. So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation. We are going to be talking about the communication that you have been receiving from the Intergalactic Council of Extraterrestrials. So let's talk about it. Just welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me, Victoria. I'm enjoying being here. And yes, that's one of my favorite conversations. And you know what? We can even speak it out loud now because the government has released all the information. I don't have to worry about the FBI showing up at my door with a gun at my head.
That's a relief.
Yes, it is.
I had been, who is that guy? Stephen. Oh, he talks a little bit about this. His last name is escaping me, but I've been really, really watching the news unfold a lot about, the extraterrestrials. And, he talks about how you can kind of meditate
Is
and
that Gear or Greer? Stephen Gear?
Greer.
Greer. Yeah, Stephen
Yes.
Greer. I know who you're talking about. I've been watching him a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, but the interesting thing is that I have become very friendly with actually the gentleman who is now documented to be the most contacted human here by extraterrestrials. His name is Christopher Bledsoe Sr.
Ooh.
And the FBI, NASA, the CIA, and the Vatican have all been working with Chris because of his communications. And he was just on the History Channel on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, the television show Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. Anybody can look for it, where science has proven they actually went to document his communication, and actual orbs came while they were there, and they're staring at them while they're coming down, and they're seeing the activity that it's causing in Chris's brain. At the same time, he's making a link with them. So they're like thoroughly convinced, oh my gosh, this thing is going on. And we were brought together together because I was communicating with them, or they were communicating with me, and then we were introduced to each other. So we're linked on the exact same kind of communication that we are receiving from them. And I'm getting actually more verbiage. He's getting some feelings. But it's been an amazing process right now that's been going on with all the extraterrestrials and the people that are linking with them now.
Wow, wow. So
Yeah.
there's so many questions, where to begin. Well, let's just start at the very beginning. Like, how did this come about for you? I mean, like, were you always interested in extraterrestrials,
Yeah.
or like, how did you start communicating with them?
You know, Victoria, that is such a wonderful question because it happened to me with extraterrestrials the same thing as it happened to me with my psychic and medium skills that opened up for me. I was always interested in extraterrestrials, but I always felt them to be benevolent,
Okay.
being good beings, okay? The same way as way in the beginning when I was a child, I was very close to the concept of God and Jesus, but I knew that the priests and the teachers were teaching them wrong at 13 years old, and I used to argue with them. There was a different feeling I had inside of me. So here I am having these feelings now about ETs, and I loved the movies. I watched, any of the good ones, but the other ones really bugged me because it made them into the most ugly aliens, and they're getting worse. Now they're robotic instead of being spiders and all these creatures. It's crazy. They're getting worse and worse. As human spheres get more and more, the aliens are looking worse and worse rather than evolving. And so what happened to me? So I always had that fascination, but that's about it. I read some books. Communion was a very famous book about communication that people had and sightings. And then a group of them, a psychologist actually formed a support group for people all over the world to be able to contact and at least speak to somebody so that they didn't feel crazy, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that always fascinated me, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And once I became psychic and I started doing that work, all of a sudden, I would also start seeing if my clients had experiences with extraterrestrials. And so I knew right away if they had sightings. I knew right away if they had the feeling of being abducted. And so I was always accurate with my descriptions. I would describe what they saw, and I was like, so you had an interaction with an alien, didn't you? Oh my gosh, yes. So it validated a lot of what they were experiencing. So I was already having that. And I tried to normalize it for them and make them realize that they were here to help. And each individual that they happened to be working with, they were helping in some way. Almost an alien visitation, Victoria, is very similar and is supposed to have the same outcome as a near-death experience for somebody.
Oh,
It's
wow.
supposed to be a wake-up call
Yeah.
for something special that that person is supposed to be doing. And so the alien visits are like a help to push that person into exploring a spiritual path and opening up their own senses now. But a lot of times what it winds up doing is scaring the person so much that
Yeah.
they don't want to have anything to do with it. So, but then so does the NDE. I do a lot of talks for near-death experience because they consider me having a spiritual transformative event, which is very similar. So I do a lot of talks for chapters around the country and just at their conferences. And so a lot of them are fearful rather than stepping into the new gift that they just received, right? So, okay, so I'm doing this and I'm seeing this for people and I'm validating it for them. But that's it, nothing else. I've not had my own experiences at all, other than, I will say this, when I first started my experience as a psychic, I actually had a communication from an alien guide. And it was a
Okay.
female alien who was in spirit, and she was actually helping me with my health. And she did. She was actually telling me at the time I was smoking, and she told me I needed to stop smoking, otherwise I was going to have a problem. And she told me a problem I was having with my lung, my left lung precisely, and she was absolutely accurate. So that was my first and only interaction with an alien. Okay, it was in spirit. So I was like, oh wow, this is fascinating. I guess once you get to the other side, whether you come from one universe or you come from the earthly universe, you're still going to be in the same place, and you can still do the same thing in helping others that are wherever they're living, wherever they're incarnated, right? So that's actually what does happen when you're in spirit. So now we're talking a few years ago, it was about right before coronavirus that came out. I'm sitting in my office. I had just finished my clients for the day, and I'm sitting there and I'm just, going through my emails, and all of a sudden I hear, "We would like to speak with you."
Mm.
So, of course, when I hear a voice, I always honor it, whatever comes to me. I was busy working on my computer, and then I hear this, so I know it was something, but it was really odd because it wasn't a spirit, because that's not how they communicate with me. "We'd like to speak with you." It's like, well, there's no spirits around, Mom. No, that's not you. You wouldn't talk to me like that. And I'm like, the next best thing that I can think of is I'm looking at my ficus tree, and I'm like, are you talking to me now? Is it my plants that are trying to communicate with me? I had no idea what this was. I'm like, really? My money plant? What? You need water or something? Wow. What do you want to talk to me about? And they said, "No, we would like to speak with you." I'm like, okay, all right, all right.
You
So,
couldn't see
no,
anything, you just
no,
are
couldn't see
hearing.
anything, just heard the voice. I said, okay, who is we? Says, "We are an intergalactic council of spiritual beings." I was not a Star Trek fan. I mean, I
Mhm.
liked it, but I knew they had an intergalactic council, and I'm like thinking, Star Trek, intergalactic council? What? Okay. What exactly is it in the intergalactic council? We are souls from different galaxies and dimensions and universes, and we have gathered together to help all beings that are incarnating in different universes. All right, I get that. I understand that. But what do you need to talk to me about? Well, because of your becoming more renowned and out in the public's eye, and you are heard by people and you speak to people, we would like to give you information that you can pass on to help people change their minds and understand who we are and why we're coming to your earth. It's like, whoa, okay. So I got some alien beings now that want to talk with me, and I'm supposed to present this in public, and they're not supposed to lock me up after all of this. And I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy. And they said, "We will talk with you and we will give you information regarding us and answer your questions and help you as best as possible with what to share with your species." And I'm like, okay, this is definitely going to be an interesting hook at this point. And of course, I told my wife, and she's like, really? So you got aliens talking to you now? So, I mean, to her, it's like dead people, aliens, you're psychic, animals. I communicate with animals. Coco the gorilla, that was when she was alive. Okay, fine. A donkey, great. Okay, so now aliens, what's the big deal? And the funny thing was, when I had shared, I always share with my children what's going on with me. So I shared, with my son that I'm talking with. He says, "Oh, wow, really?" And my grandchildren, "Really, Poppy? You're talking with aliens now? That's so cool." I tell my daughter, and she's like, "Dad, do we need to have an intervention?" And I'm like, "Now you want to have an intervention?" I mean, with everything else I've been talking, she says, "Yeah, I can accept dead people and I can accept the animals and stuff, but now aliens, Dad? Seriously?" I said, "Look, what's one alien over a dead body? I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, what difference does it make, right?" So it was really interesting, and it happened to be right around the time that there was a conference coming up, and it was about UFOs and paranormal experiences with them. And I let somebody know who I knew was running the conference that, I have to tell you something. I just started to experience this stuff and this communication. They said, "Oh, you'd be perfect then. Why don't you come and join us?" And I'm like, "Holy cow!" So actually, I put together a lecture and I called it "Close Encounters of the Psychic Kind."
Ooh,
And
interesting.
so, yeah, so it was all about them communicating with me and everything that they began to share with me. And it really is it's fascinating, Victoria. If we just sit back and listen, we'd get rid of all of the fears that we have, truly.
Yeah, that's
That's
makes a
how it
lot of
began. Yeah.
yeah. So how often do you communicate with them? I mean, is this like a daily thing, a weekly thing, random? I mean, can you reach out to them, or you just wait to hear what they have to say? Like, how does that work?
All of the above, actually. I do. I in the beginning, particularly, I was waiting for them to reach out to me, and they were reaching out to me more often, almost on a daily basis. And then it became, well, whenever you have something to tell me, or when I was going to be in public and they wanted to share something with me before I got to public, they would talk to me. But then I can now call upon them. It was really interesting. I was doing a reading, a connection with a friend of mine who has had an experience, and all of a sudden, a visual came in now.
I was
So first it
literally
was
going
a
to ask
voice.
you, that was my next question.
One actually from well, what happened was all of a sudden in my mind's eye, and that's how I see deceased people, right? As on the other side, I see it in my mind's eye. Like if you close your eyes and you go to picture something, a banana, an apple, you're picturing it with your mind's eye, or in the paranormal metaphysical world, they want to call it the third eye. They want to make something special out of it. It's nothing special. It's part of who we are. It's your being, just like you have a mind's ear, the inner ear, where you can think to yourself and hear your voice or hear a song in your head without actually speaking it. That's your inner ear.
Yeah.
So in my mind's eye, all of a sudden, I saw what would be considered a gray, the shorter ones
Hmm.
with the bigger head and the bigger eyes, all of a sudden appear right next to me, talking to me, helping me with information for my friend. And I'm like, and I'm asking it in my mind's ear, my mind's voice, are you from the Galactic Council? And it said, yes. It was a male. And he said, yes, I am. I'm here to help you. I'm like, so you would appear to me then at any time that you are wanting to see us, you can. And so it's really interesting. And so from that vision, I actually asked them, I said, is there a hierarchy as far as your advancement, as far as your evolvement as to what you look like? And they said, yes, that is true. I said, well, can you give me some of that? And he started and said, you are the most archaic of the species. So
I can believe
that's
that.
how we originally looked.
Hmm.
Then, believe it or not, the Palladians that you hear about, these gorgeous blonde people that all look like they come from Sweden, Norway, all blonde hair down to here. As a matter of fact, they're used even in the movie The Lord of the Rings. They're the
Okay.
elves, right? They're such beautiful beings, right? But in
Hmm.
the movie they're called elves. It's so funny that we know all of these things, and it's how it appears. Our knowledge appears in different movies and television shows, and it's being put there unconsciously.
Yeah.
But in reality, we're showing something that we know about that's real. So the Palladians are the next in advancement. They are still far advanced than we are,
Uh-huh.
but they still look more like humans.
Yeah.
And they still eat the same way, and they still communicate the same way. Well, from there is a big jump.
Hmm.
And so now you start seeing the tall and the slender ones still with the bigger heads and the small mouths. And so to just explain, so much keeps coming into my head the moment I need to ask something, like they're there for me right away. And I'm like, why do you have such small mouths? He says, because we don't eat food the same way anymore. We drink it. We drink our nutrition because it gets through our bodies faster. We absorb it better, and we still enjoy different flavors, but better than your flavors. You're kidding me. There's something better than pizza out there? Oh my gosh, to get that or ice cream. I'm like, yes, believe it or not, there are better flavors that you can enjoy, but you can drink it instead. Our bodies don't have fat on them the same way as you do.
Right.
So we are able to get around easier. Our vision is both nocturnal as well as during the day. So why when you have so many hours of nighttime, right, and darkness, why wouldn't you be able to see during that time? So your evolvement has been very slow. We've tried to hasten it and make it quicker, but you haven't evolved as fast physically as well as emotionally and mentally. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to convince me with the mental part. Um, that I definitely see our archaicness at that point and our lack of civilization, the way we're supposed to be civil. And so that's how it was going. And so, yes, they have appeared to me, and it's been wonderful communication. But what's more important, Victoria, that people have to understand when a psychic receives information, the only way that we can truly know if we're correct if we get validated in some way.
Yes.
Now, when I'm working with a client and I turn around like I did today, and I was like, okay, who was the one? You were playing a piano when you were younger. I see that. But then there was somebody who was right next to you and they were on the drums. And so we got some musicians going. Yes, I played the piano. My mother played the violin or whatever. And my brother played the drums and stuff. So that gets validated for me, right? Okay, I know I have a connection now. That's great. But all of this stuff coming from aliens, how do I get that validated?
Right.
Well, it's really interesting because there has been so much research that has gone on, and so much of it is coming out now. Okay. And what's been really interesting is there's been other experts who have studied UFOs for years, and including crashed ones, like the Roswell crash
Hmm.
was the most famous one, where they actually had not only a craft but three aliens themselves, one that was still alive and two that had died because of the crash. And so the information, and I didn't know any of this. That I had not researched any of this. I didn't know any of these people beforehand. And then I started meeting them after I was given this information. So it just recently came out that the way they get around, how do their crafts move so quickly? And, because we're trying to reverse engineer the
Hmm.
spaceship that they have in studying it to try to reproduce, and they're not going to be able to reproduce anything. They'll get them so far because here is the interesting item about all of that that Albert Einstein knew. He said, in order for any species to escape their universe and dimension, they would have to have command of high spiritual concepts and principles.
Ooh.
So that says a couple of things right there. Number one, they can only be benevolent.
Hmm.
They can only be good because they are escaping their universe.
Yes.
And also the capacity to be able to escape it is they use dematerialization. And that is a quantum physics concept, which is also a higher spiritual understanding, looking beyond the physical world to a higher energy level world, a metaphysical world, right? So those are higher concepts right there. So when they tell me all the information on how they're able to get around, I'm like, you had to just, have command of this. Otherwise, you would never have figured that out.
Yeah.
And so then it was validated from other scientists what I was getting from these aliens, this council of aliens, which has been amazing.
That's so fascinating. I like every time you say a sentence, I have like 10 questions being into
Oh,
my
wait,
head.
I haven't told you the most important part yet.
Yeah, I'm dying to hear it. But let me just ask a couple of side questions just out of my own
Go right ahead.
curiosity. So, one of the things I know, you're gonna dive into has to do with that they are here to help us.
Yes.
But before even getting into that, I mean, you just with this world is like gone crazy, especially over the last, few years, like pretty much right about 2020 when coronavirus broke out. It just really feels like things have amped up in negative energy, negative and positive. I mean, there's definitely people that are more spiritual than ever before. There is that subset of that population, but it does really feel like I don't know how we're going to like not erupt as a species, the way that things have been going. It's a little scary right now. So are you hearing any messages in that regard? Like, I'd love to kind of, know, like, especially relevant. Today we're talking about, all this, and I don't want to get political, okay? But we have lots of wars happening in the world right now. And so what is their message?
Well, let me tell you something to start with. The reason why we don't have to get political, because politics has nothing to do with what's going wrong in our country or the world.
Yeah.
You got to understand that politics is the result of society. It at least allows us to reflect to see what are our values right now. That's what we are seeing in politics. So we don't have to talk about politics because that's not the cause of the problem.
Yeah.
The cause of the problem is where we're coming from. So here's the thing. I do want to just say one thing, just to expand upon something you said. This has actually been happening before the coronavirus, which is why the coronavirus came around.
Mm-hmm.
Got to understand something. When we were first created, no matter what you want to believe, it doesn't matter, but the truth always works, whether you believe in it or not, which is really interesting, right? So when we were first created, we were created in its image as energy, so as powerful, as with all its knowledge, everything, okay? The whole reason why the universes were created were for us to go somewhere to experience what we know. Mm. So until you know what you know, you only know it on an unconscious level, and it doesn't mean anything. You have to be able to know it on a conscious level. That's what's meant by knowing what you know, okay? So these universes were created for us, and we were told right away from the very beginning, you, as these higher energy forces, will have dominion over everything physical, including whatever you create for yourself as a vehicle to get around down there. Understand that. That doesn't mean that you can play with it because you have dominion. It means you're going to influence it. Okay. So what is now happening was happening before. There was so much negativity. We had so many of these free will shootings all over the place, whether it be in this country or another country in another part of the world, right? And it was going on. There was all of this bigotry and all of these horrible outbursts of anger and resentment and all of that, right? We were having these terrible fights between different tribes and civilizations and over across in Africa, in all different places, over here in Israel before it was going the way it was going now, all over the place, right? And then all of a sudden the pandemic comes out. Well, we actually created the pandemic. And here's the interesting thing.
I believe that.
Yes, because we were told, we listened to the knowledge is that the God force is everything, whatever you want to call it. Everybody understands or believes at least something. If they believe in a God, they believe this force is part of everything. Well, if it's part of everything, so are we.
Yeah.
Therefore, the pandemic is not individual or something separate from us. It is us. It's the negative part of us coming out in the form of a disease. We create our own individual diseases. Collectively, we created this one big giant disease. Yeah. And what it needed to do is it put us all in a timeout. We all separated from each other, right? Yeah. As children, and everything stopped. The fighting stopped, the shooting stopped, right?
For a little while.
It seemed, exactly. It seemed like it was a good thing, but it actually still wasn't. It was still a disease, no matter how it came. This is the way we had to respond to it. Now all of this other stuff is going on, okay? And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse because all of the negativity is being brought to the surface. This has been packed down inside of humans for the longest time. I don't care if there was civil rights. Yes, we got civil rights going to a certain extent, but bigotry and racism was still packed into people. They still hated blacks, whether they had rights or not. They still hated gays and LGBTQ pluses and all of that. They still thought women was less than men. All of that was still inside of these people. And this all brought them the past couple of years. You're seeing all of this stuff surface, and we've got spiritual anarchy going on right now. There's another thing that's going on right now that when people are asking me, what direction are we going in? I will tell you what direction we're going in, and it's not so pleasant right now. There was a reason why the story of Sodom and Gomorrah was written in the book. It had nothing to do with history. Everything in the Old Testament is a metaphysical story and guidance system to let us know who we are and what we're capable of. Mm-hmm. Now, some of it is historical, all right? Sodom and Gomorrah. And it wasn't about God. There is the force out there, the law of attraction that we're all connected to. That's the God force, shall we say, okay? Yeah. George Lucas just called it the force. By the way, that whole story and saga is about us and our connection to that force. And we're meant to be either Jedi Knights or we're going to become Darth Vaders. That's all about us. Excuse me. So, in Sodom and Gomorrah, what was happening is people were going crazy. All this anarchy was going on. Sex everywhere, shooting everywhere, killing. Well, they didn't have guns. They were stabbing each other with swords and blades and everything and arrows, right? And all of this nonsense was going on. And an angel came down and got Lot and said, hey, listen, okay, God is going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Well, in actuality, what the angel was warning them is like, you're tapped into this energy and you're going so off the path that you're about ready to destroy yourselves. Now, in order to compensate for that, and this is the story of critical mass, you need to wake up a certain amount of people to a spiritual path because that will compensate for all the negative stuff. So Lot's like, okay. How many do we need to wake up? Well, we got 1,000 population in there right now that are going crazy, 11. If you wake up 11 of them, then that positiveness will overtake the negativeness. You'll be fine. So Lot goes and he's trying.
So you only needed 1%. That's about 1%.
That's it. That's all they needed is about 1%. Because think about this for a moment. Why is positive so strong? Well, it's always been so strong. An atom in a physical world is made of a proton, neutron, and electron, right? The proton holds the electrons going around it. So one proton can have 4 or 5 electrons circling it because that's how powerful it is, okay? So the positive is always more powerful than the negative. Okay, so Lot comes back and says, oh, Lordy, I can't wake up 11 people. So the angel says, oh boy, I tell you what, I think if you wake up at least 9 of them, there may be some earthquakes, but it won't destroy all of you and kill everybody, okay? Maybe some injuries, a few 100 people get hurt, I don't know, but at least you can save most of you, okay? Go. Get 9 people. Well, we know the rest of the story. He couldn't find 9. The angel said, get the hell out of there. Don't turn around and look back because that means you're still connected. Just keep going because, Sodom and Gomorrah is going to hell in a handbasket. Sorry about that. Guess what? We're repeating the exact story now. We are it's not just the people that are going crazy. Look at what we're doing to the earth. Look at what's happening. Look at the storms that are happening. Look at the earthquakes that are happening. When was the last time we had an earthquake and 40,000 people were killed in it? Right? Over in Turkey. When are we having fires all over the place? When was the last time Hawaii went on fire and killed people there? And then when people going in and so yes, do you get a guy going to a bowling alley and shooting a whole bunch of people? Is that going to cause something? You better believe it. And I told everybody, since the bombing of Israel and that started after Russia started, there's going to be another volcano erupting. And guess what? There's a volcano that's coming coming alive right now.
In Iceland right now.
Right in Iceland right
Yeah.
now, it's coming, it's waking up because of
Yeah.
all of this disruption. There's earthquakes. San Francisco had an earthquake. It was only 3.5, but you have one earthquake. Another one is going to happen someplace because you're shifting the plate tectonics, if you know anything about plate tectonics. So we are affecting this world. And if we think that it's getting better, yes. Are there more people? Now, here's the other part, Victoria, which is so important for people to understand.
Yeah.
You are putting out information. I am putting out information. But quite honestly, we're just library sources.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing, the bookstores are out there filled with all of these spiritual, new thought, new age principles and concept. People are buying them, and it's a $33 billion a year industry. So people are buying them up, going to all of these conferences, doing all of these things, yet nothing has changed. You know why? Because
Why?
nobody is applying
Yes.
the work and
Yeah.
the information. And that's why we don't have the critical mass yet. You buy, I don't care if you have my book and it's on your shelf. If you're not doing anything with it and you're not healing your life and your past, then it's no more than a book on a shelf, and it has absolutely no power. And so the more knowledge you have stuffed up in here matters not, because it's what you do with this down here that matters and why things aren't turning around. So we have to have a massive application type of movement going on. Right? Not
Absolutely.
just a new age, a new thought, a new movement. Get the work done. And that's the way we're going to heal everything that's going on right now. It's with ourselves first. I deal with thousands of people all over the world every single year. I got clients from Seoul, Korea. I just got off with somebody from Holland. I had Australia last week. All over the world, they're all experiencing the same thing. They're all blocked. They're all trying to figure out their lives. And I'm like, you got my book. You read the book. You're not doing the work. Oh, I know. I get caught up in life. Well, don't get caught up in life. You got to stop getting caught up in life, because guess what? There's not going to be any life to get caught up in if you keep going. Either you're going to get a disease and you're going to leave, or this earth is going to leave in some way. And so it's the work is the most important thing. That's what you're here for. And so people have to understand that. Now, I hate being and sounding like Debbie Downer here. And, you know, because I'm not like some of my colleagues that always want to paste warm fuzzies. There's so many of them are saying, well, we have to come to this place and suffering a lot, because that's when we start doing things. Well, guess what? There is no guarantee to that.
No.
Yes, we do things because that's our spirit. That's the soul that knows, hey, you're throwing lemons at me? Well, you better do something with those lemons. Let's make some lemonade. But I'm sick and tired of the lemons coming in. It's not a guarantee that you're going to make lemonade out of them.
So
That's
what
the point.
what are some of the things that you talk about in your book that we're not doing that we need to be doing to work on ourselves?
It's trite stuff. It's the stuff that they were coming out with in the 70s with the psychologist, inner child work. Right? That became so famous because it was affecting so many people. But then, as with everything, just like religions, just like anything else, people get tired of it and bored with it. And because they're not doing the actual application and the work, they think the information is bogus. It's not working. So they want something different. They want something new, a new religion, a new philosophy, a new thought, right? We went from the new age movement to the new thought movement. There'll be another new movement coming along soon, right? Because we get tired of it. But guess what? They're going back to it again, because in my work, you got to understand there are parts of the brain that are causing our problems, right? The two highest functions of the brain, we have to remember what they are. One is to keep us alive. That's the highest function.
Yeah.
The second highest function then is to protect us in order to keep us alive. So how does it protect us? How does the brain protect us? Well, for example, when the coronavirus came around, people had fevers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said one of the symptoms of the coronavirus is a low-grade fever. Well, it wasn't the coronavirus that was causing the fever. It was the brain that was raising your body temperature intentionally to make it an unlivable environment for the coronavirus.
Right.
It didn't always work. And that then becomes the agenda in protecting us. We got to raise the temperature. It doesn't pay attention to the fact that the temperature is uncomfortable, or that if it raises it too high, we can actually die from it. Nope. I've got to protect you from the virus. So that's its total agenda.
So it's our immune system, essentially.
With our immune system. Okay, so we know how different ways that it protects us physically. Another way is if we lack oxygen, your brain will make you pass out. Why? Because when the human body is laying flat and it's unconscious, you breathe better.
Yeah, I've heard
Because
that.
while you're conscious, you're breathing, you don't breathe well, you breathe shallow, right? So it's not paying attention to the fact that you just climbed Mount Everest and you lack oxygen, and now it's going to make you pass out so you can lay down flat and you fall off Mount Everest because you just passed out, and bam, you land bam on the bottom, and that's it. You don't need to worry about breathing anymore. It's not paying attention to that. It just needed you to have oxygen. On the way down, you got oxygen. Once you hit bottom, forget it, you didn't need it anymore. Now, what does it do to protect us with emotional pain? Because if we walk around with emotional pain 24/7, we would never function. And the emotional pain comes from our youth and the different belief systems we form about ourselves from when we were younger by the way the environment treated us, right? All this negative stuff, the messages we receive. And let's face it, it has been going wrong for the longest time in the way children have been raised, because the people who are raising them have problems themselves that they didn't resolve and take care of. So they get passed down to the kids. So the kids and today and it all walk around with these, I call them the I'm nots. I'm not good enough. I'm not deserving. I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I'm not pretty. I'm not smart enough. Whatever it is, those are all negative feelings. Now, your brain can't let you walk around with that. So as you get older, it will create a whole new set of beliefs and defense mechanisms to shield you from what you're really believing.
It's like your coping mechanisms.
It's a coping mechanism. And when I was a psychotherapist, because I did that as work too, I went back to school to get my psychotherapy degrees while I was a psychic. I figured as long as I'm going in the human mind, I needed to know what I was dealing with and how to not hurt the human mind, right? So people are walking around with these new belief systems because it's easier to believe something else is at fault, not me. What you're seeing in the way people are acting today are their defense mechanisms. So if I can be angry with you and mad at you and call you a jerk, I don't have to worry about being mad at myself. So now it's not my fault. I'm smart enough, but the reason why I didn't get that promotion is because my boss is a jerk. Oh, my love life isn't working out. That has nothing to do with me not being lovable. It has to do with my partner. She's horrible, or he's terrible. He's a dog. Whatever the excuse we're going to come up with, we are going to do that. We're going to hate another human being to stop and keep us from hating ourselves. But here's the problem. It's not true what we're believing, those made up beliefs to shield us. And we are connected, and you know this because you teach this. We are not connected to the law of attraction in our conscious minds. Right. We are connected in our unconscious minds. And guess what? In your unconscious mind resides the little you, because we're an accumulation of our entire lifetime. And so it's really interesting, and I hope that this helps you too, because anybody who teaches about the law of attraction keeps teaching about your thoughts creating. Now, if you're teaching a layperson that, it's an actual fallacy, because your thoughts do not manifest, your beliefs do.
Yeah, that's what I've
or beliefs, right? Because you're smart enough to be able to teach that. Now, your thoughts influence your beliefs, which is why you have to have the better thoughts, because you got to retrain that subconscious mind and that little you inside of you to believe something different. So, in fact, when you're trying to get a new job because you believe that you're more worth it, but you're not getting that job, that's because little you is saying, oh, you're not going to get that job. You're not good enough. But you don't know that that's what's happening because it's happening so fast. Plus, only 2 to 5% of the human mind is in conscious awareness, Victoria. That means 95 to 98% of the human mind is in unconscious awareness. Yeah. So when people are walking around thinking that they know themselves, no, you don't. You only know 2 to 5% of yourself. You have no idea what's going on in that unconscious part of you, but I can tell you right now what's going on. What you see in your outer world is what you are believing in your inner world. And that's what my book is all about. You've got to get inside. So it doesn't make a difference how many other books you get, how many books about just the law of attraction, unless you get to the root of the problem and change what your inner core beliefs are, you're not going to manifest anything good. That's the work. And that's the stuff that people don't want to work on. Oh, I'd rather learn my career a little bit more and get some more background in that because that'll at least get me a better job. No, it won't. It's not. I'm sorry. Oh, maybe I can go on a retreat and learn about love and how to get relationships and listen to the love expert because that'll get me a good partner, my soulmate. No, it won't. Not at all. And originally, my book was going to be called God, It's Not Working. Because that's what people wind up saying after they get all of these tools. There are beautiful words out there and beautiful tools for everybody, but they got to understand it's got to get down into the depth of you, not to the surface part of you, not to that part that's being protected, because it won't let anything in, just the same thing as it won't let anything up. Because it doesn't want any of that negative stuff in your maladaptive mind. I call it the environmental made mind that holds on to all that negative stuff. I call it environmentally made because when we're kids, we're like sponges. And so the beliefs we wind up forming are created from the outer world that's being fed to us. So that's the environment feeding it to us. So your defense mechanism stops that from coming up, but it also stops stuff from going in. So that's why I say most people don't believe what they think they believe. And when people are using my book, yes, that's what they're discovering inside of them. And it's turning lives around because they're finally realizing. I just got off the phone with a client today, and that's the first thing she said. I had no idea what I was believing until I started using your book and working on it. I couldn't believe what I was believing. That's the thing. Yes. And when you turn that around now, all of a sudden, then you can see that things will work, right? And they can see it then, but they never saw it before because it was hidden from them. So
beautiful. Your message is like just 100% resonating with me. Everything that you said, I 100%, 110% back up and believe is true. You know, so many people, because the law of attraction is like this airy fairy idea that, you know, it's like you can attract what you want, and it sounds nice and it sounds beautiful, it sounds great, it sounds happy, it sounds positive, and it is, and it can be. However, there is a process to get your mind prepared and in the condition so that it can even accept any new thoughts.
Absolutely.
And like you said, I pound this into people's head all the time. It's like, because I have my books too, and you've got to do the work. You've got to align yourself. And my new app is called Believe. It's called Believe.
Love it. I love it. That's what I have everywhere, right? Believe.
And it's 100%. It's like we got to like beat this into your subconscious mind. You've got to, do the work to get it in. You got to release the,
They're always looking for an easy way out, which is why there are so many different philosophies and people, and try crystal beds and that's going to do it. Wave a pendulum over your chakra, that's going to do it. They just want something that's easy, but you can't bypass this work. And let me tell you, here's with a very funny thing that I bring up. I kind of like do a metaphor over here. It's like a woman having a baby. Okay. There is a special hormone, and maybe you did or didn't know this, which is really interesting, but I found it out from our doctor. There is a special hormone only in women that after they have a baby, because a pregnancy is so painful, this hormone actually causes you to forget the pain.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily make you forget what you went through, but you don't remember the pain you went through. Because if a woman remembered the pain she went through, there would not be 8 billion people in the world today. And maybe she should have remembered the pain because we have way too many people in the
Some people need to remember it
that's the
more than
reason.
others.
Right. It's why you can have a second baby. It takes time. Maybe a year later, you're going, okay, I forgot we can have another baby because you forgot the pain you went through.
Hmm.
Well, here's what's interesting about doing this work. Yes, doing this work can be painful because you have to do it on a daily basis. Like I write in my book, I say the process is simple. It's an actual simple process, but the practice is difficult because we get so caught up or we want to get distracted in life rather than to what we need to pay attention to. We allow ourselves to get distracted by all the other mundane physical stuff. We know we're on a spiritual journey. At least those of us who are listening to a program like this, I'm not saying everybody is, right?
Yeah.
And when you're on a spiritual journey, you know there's work that you need to be doing. You need to be meditating. You need to be releasing all of this negative stuff and turning things around. So if you're not doing that, you know that you've chosen not to do that because you don't want to put that work in.
Yeah.
But the only way to heal this world, because we are an individual accumulation of our energy, and because we're connected to everybody, then we are a collective energy. The work you do individually not only affects you in a positive way, affects your neighbor in a positive way, which then keeps going and dominoing down the line. And that's how you wind up healing the world. Caring about yourself, you will automatically pour out and care about your neighbor because that's what happens within us, right? We like it. It's, for example, when you watch a good movie and you're by yourself, right? And you see this great movie, one of the first things you want to do is you call up your friends or your family. Oh, I just saw this great movie. You've got to see it. Let me know when you go to see it. I want to go with you and see it again. Why do we do that? Because we experience joy ourselves, but we experience more joy when we're sharing something wonderful with a loved one.
Oh,
And
yes.
we automatically will then reach out and share this. You got to share this. All I want to do, all you want to do, for goodness sake, why do you have a podcast? So that you can listen to yourself all the time? I'm going to play back that podcast because I sounded so good on that. No, of course not. You do it because you want others to share. You want them to have the joy of experiencing what you're experiencing. And I do the work for the exact same reason. Well, everybody will do that when they work on themselves. And that's how we stop this process. But we've got to do it sooner than later.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do it not even just for yourself, but do it for your fellow man.
Yes, exactly. Now, and believe it or not, that's not even the most mind-blowing information that I have that the aliens have given me.
Interesting. Okay, so this information about, getting, to the core of your limiting beliefs and releasing them and doing, this work, this came from your counsel. Is that
No, that came from 40 years of my
okay?
work that I've done, from
Okay.
my psychicness, from my research, my work as a psychotherapist in
Hmm.
school, all the
Okay.
research that I did on other people, and all the readings that I've done for the past 40 years. That is what's accumulated in that book and what I use to help myself that I continue to use every day.
Absolutely. So I definitely hope that everybody runs out and grabs a copy of your book because I really do think that it could
So
save
do I.
people's lives. I'm
Thank
actually
you.
going to grab a copy myself because
I love
just
it.
I always am fascinated with different approaches and techniques on this really really important topic on
Oh, I
limiting
know. And I
beliefs.
want your app, Believe. I want that. That's right up my alley. I've got Believe written everywhere.
Oh, I want it too. I'm waiting for my developers to just wrap it up. We're so
That's
close.
fabulous. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, if your extraterrestrials have any insight on why it's been taking so long, I would certainly love to know.
Yeah, actually there is, and that's not just coming from my extraterrestrials, it's coming from my psychic sense. And it's, I hate saying this, and it's, there's no such thing, just so that you know, as divine timing.
Yeah, yeah,
We create our own timing. It has
mm,
not, God does not have any calendar for us.
yeah,
Okay. There is nothing and there is no plan. It just created us in its image and gave us everything and said, go out. Go out and create the lives you want. You have free will. You can do anything you want, good, bad, or indifferent. It's your lives. You figure it out.
yeah. So it's
What it is.
me that's holding it back, right?
Yes, it's us and everything like that. The reason why, but it's also because our interpretation of time to us, we think everything takes too long. Believe me, I understand that. I'm 68 years old and there's still some things in my dreams that I need to accomplish and want to have happen. And so, yes, did I get in my way for some of it? Yes, I will admit it. Yes, you can admit it in some way. It usually is a belief, again, of some kind. You know, this will be really wonderful. Do I believe that it's going to be good enough? It's going to be successful? All of that stuff comes into play and holds us up. But the other part of it too is, you know, in Hollywood or television, if they release a movie at the wrong time,
Mm-hmm.
it fails. It
Yeah.
fails, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, all this nonsense about how media is controlling the population and influencing it. No, it's not. The population is influencing the media. There is nothing that they can put out there that if we don't like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to succeed. Okay.
Yeah.
So, just the same way as the universe that you're part of is realizing when is the right time
Yeah.
for this app to come out. I know you want it out right now, but we'll just wait a little bit longer, wait a little bit longer. And when it comes out, it's going to do so much better than if it came out too soon. So just wait for the right timing and the right your promotion of it, and you'll see it'll be so much better. Okay. So
Awesome.
that's the reason that I'm seeing is
Yeah.
that it's not the right timing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, that
Okay.
makes me feel a little bit better about it.
Good, good. The right
Yeah.
timing is coming up quickly, though, just so that you know. So this is going to be done sooner. It's kind of like going to round the corner and go lickety split once it rounds that corner.
Yeah.
So it just, yes, it's just going to be out
And then it's just going to go
perfect time.
viral.
Yeah, yes, it's going to go at a perfect time. So just you'll see what happens with it. Truly.
Yeah.
But
That's awesome.
but one of the things that I did want to share about the aliens, which is
Yeah.
so interesting because I got this information prior to hearing a very well-known anthropologist talking about it. And it's about the modern man or
Mm.
humankind.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. In the Old Testament, the story of Cain and Abel, after Cain kills Abel, right? And God casts Cain out of the Garden of Eden and says to him, and nobody pays attention to this part or explains it, you can no longer procreate with your kind. You have to procreate with that of the earth. What was he talking about? Gorillas? He's gonna fornicate with some gorillas and make part human gorilla babies. You know,
No.
maybe that's what Sasquatch is, right? No, that's not what was meant by that story at that time. It was an understanding that there were two humans, two species that was on this planet. One that was Neanderthal. Matter of fact, if you go to 23andMe, the ancestry site,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you do your DNA testing, they'll let you know if a portion of you comes from the Neanderthal.
Interesting. I
I
didn't know
had
that.
that done. And yes, a portion of my bloodline and my DNA comes from Neanderthal. And if you met my father's side of the family, you would completely understand that. Neanderthals, for sure, they never progressed. Anyway, I digressed.
You know what's
digressed.
so crazy? I just right as we're speaking, because we brought up Stephen Greer earlier, his
Mhm.
YouTube notification just popped up on my phone.
About Stephen Greer. No,
Yeah,
no, isn't that funny? And he's talking about UFOs. That validates what I'm about ready to say.
exactly.
Okay. So the second man, humankind, that we are, modern man,
Yeah.
humankind, where did we come from? Well, it's interesting
The
because
stars, right? The stuff.
no,
No. Okay.
no. Science has shown that part of the original DNA was spliced.
Oh,
There is
okay.
a small portion which is exactly like the Neanderthal DNA, but
Okay.
then all of a sudden the rest of it is completely different. And DNA does not evolve like that.
Yeah.
And so what I learned from the council is that we are hybrids.
Oh.
They are the ones that spliced their genetics into our genetics in order to hasten our evolvement. And because of that, modern man appeared 11,000 years ago upright and with the kind of brain and intelligence that we have today, that we were
So
able
you're
to
saying
develop.
that we have, as part of our DNA, we've got this extraterrestrial nature
Yes, we
within
have. We
us.
have our brothers and sisters' bigger DNA that they've evolved. And one of the reasons why they have been abducting humans is
Hmm.
because we have been creating diseases faster than the human body can adapt to heal them. And
Hmm.
what they're doing is genetic changing. They're constantly adding new genetics to us in order to try to adapt to keep the human species from destroying itself, from killing or being killed off. And what's
Hmm.
interesting, what dietetically now, they're saying that there is a food that we shouldn't be eating because it's not good for us, and it's in the meat family. What meat family is that?
I,
Red meat.
oh, red
Red
meat. Yeah.
meat,
I haven't
right?
eaten red meat since I was 18.
Oh my God, I cannot go without eating red meat. I like a nice rare steak. You see how red this is? That's how
Yeah.
my meat has to be when I'm eating it. I love it. I'm carnivorous. It's interesting. Skinwalker Ranch. What was going on in Skinwalker Ranch? There was a mutilation of the cattle, but there wasn't a mutilation. They actually said that the cattle was dissected,
Oh, that's right. Now I remember.
right? And then other animals wouldn't eat it, but it was still dissected. What do you think the aliens are doing if they're trying to help us? What do you think they're doing with a dissected cow meat in order to help us as humans? They're trying
Either,
to find out why is the red meat hurting us so bad? Because it's been so processed, because of the food that it's being given, the antibiotics that it's being fed. So you study, don't we take apart animals in order to study them and find out that it's
yeah.
bad? It's bad to eat red meat. It's bad to eat this because we dissect it. We take it apart. So they can't take a big giant cow up into the spaceship with them. They can take a chicken. So that's no problem because that's nice and small. So they take pieces of meat, but they're not destroying it for no purpose. Oh, it's really interesting. We consider them completely barbaric because of what they're doing, and that's why we fear them, that they're getting ready to attack us. But meanwhile, we can take a pig and crush its head and in giant bulks over here, Smithfield, which is right by me. That's how they kill their pigs and slaughter them. They put them in big giant compressors, just like you do a car when you want to crush it down, and they come down with a big giant
Yeah, let's
thing.
yeah.
Exactly. I need that image to be seen. So why
Yeah.
are we then considered the cannibal and the horrible beings? Right away,
Yeah.
we want to think that the aliens are, right? They are doing it purposely and scientifically to try to help us so that they can now get to a point of helping genetically
Yeah.
and be able to put inside of us some way of dealing with that. So
Yeah.
that's the reason why. Or they're taking women who are pregnant and they're impregnating them and then they're taking the babies. One of the best ways to get human genetics, to get all of those cells that they need in order to help is get a baby, but they're not killing the baby.
I want
They're
to be able to wrap this back around to our purpose of having you here so that we
oh,
can go ahead and wrap up. I could talk to you all day.
Oh, I know, and I can talk
You've got,
forever, as you can
yeah,
tell.
you've got so much great information. So let's wrap up with, what is the main message that you want our listeners to come away with today?
Okay. First of all, we're going to get, and I'm glad that we're getting all the help that we possibly can get to start understanding who we are as magnificent, divine superpowers and beings, right? This body is only a vehicle for our souls to be able to experience ourselves here, but we are unlimited. The reason why you go after your dreams, the reason why you create a goal for yourself is just to know that you can achieve something, that we are unlimited. But the only way to find out that we're unlimited is by being able to go after something, right? It's not even in the achieving of it that matters. It's the going after and finally believing that you are this power. As you do that and you go in and you take the steps to really truly heal yourself, unblock what's in there, bring to the surface those negative thoughts, turn them around into more positive ones, and all of a sudden you will see the law of attraction working in your favor moment to moment. It's instantaneous. It doesn't take years. It doesn't take even minutes. It takes moments to be able to create something, and you will see that. But you've got to do the work. Believe in yourself. Believe that you're part of something greater. Believe that you're more than this physical life. Believe that we can all heal. And we can stop what's going on in the world, help each other, put love out there to each other, because that's what's missing. And I know that we can all do it because we're still here. We're not left behind. We're purposely staying here to help heal the world. And so let's go after it. You're either part of the cure or you're part of the problem. Be part of the cure and start with yourself. That's all I've got to say. You can do it.
I love it. That is a beautiful, beautiful message to and to end this on. And get the book, The Secret That's Holding You Back. I highly recommend it. And yeah, and look up Vincent Genna on vincentgenna.com. And thank you so much for all of your wonderful information, your insights, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much yourself, Victoria, especially for letting me just verbally just vomit on everybody.
It's been my
when I
pleasure.
start talking, it's hard to stop me. But at
It's
least I
been
get
my
it out here.
pleasure.
My wife doesn't let me, so
Thank you so much.
take care.